Welcome to Global Tax Talk. I'm Will Morris, and I'm here in Accra, Ghana for our Africa Tax Policy Roundtable. And I'm delighted to be joined by two of my colleagues, by Mbai Rashamuse, who is our Tax and Legal Services Leader for the Southern Market in South Africa, and by Esiri Agbeyi, who's our Africa Family Business Leader and International Trade and ESG Leader for PwC Nigeria. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Good. So Mbai, let me start with you, although Esiri, I will then pose the same question to you, which is that in many parts of the world, not just in Africa, sustainability and ESG initiatives have become really quite a focal point for many multinationals. And when that sustainability reporting includes tax, it can be a really quite powerful indicator, both for the businesses themselves, but also for the societies that surround them, about their commitment to that society, part of the S in ESG, if you will. So what is it that's happening here in Africa? What are companies doing? And what are the upsides to getting this narrative right? Mbai.
So over the years, we've seen a gradual increase of businesses that have started reporting on tax transparency, which I think it's a good thing. And, some of the sectors that are doing quite well is the basic metal sectors and the financial services sectors. And in South Africa, our Johannesburg Securities Exchange has actually produced guidance in terms of sustainability reporting, which also includes tax transparency reporting. However, based on, I'm sure you know that we do issue a building public trust publication every year. So from that publication, what we're seeing is that most listed companies, even though they are producing, results on, the tax reporting, they're only just complying with the guidance. They're not going above and beyond. And I think there's really great benefit in, disclosing your tax and being more transparent about it, because it allows you to actually showcase your commitment and your contribution to society, which helps then in building societal trust with the different stakeholders.
So, thank you. And Esiri, what are you seeing in this area?
Yeah, I think the other angle may be around building trust as it relates to investors. Mm-hmm. Investors definitely are requiring a lot more information on contribution by companies to their society. And I think there's a lot of push as well from certain regions like the EU and sometimes also the US with some of the SEC regulations as well. That's causing a push for companies to disclose more. Otherwise, run short of investments in those areas. The other thing is also around the social impact, which Mbai alluded to. One of the key things when it comes to Africa is we are rich in the extractive space, but then most of the communities from where those minerals are obtained are impoverished. And I think there's a lot more requirement now to show that you are contributing to those societies. And that's where data comes in. What are you doing? To what extent are you supporting those societies? But then a balance has to be had around how much information can I disclose? Where are the confidentiality gaps, perhaps? And would I be falling into any tax mine with the tax authorities? These are some of the conversations that clients are thinking of.
Right. Well, thank you very much for that. Let me stick with you, Esiri, and move over to a slightly different aspect of something which businesses have to deal with, which is that there has been this huge proliferation, again, in things like carbon taxes, pricing regimes, CBAM in the EU, various others. And as a result of that, governments have also been introducing reporting requirements around that. So how are tax functions in the businesses that you deal with sort of looking at that? How do they address the compliance obligations? And also, are they looking for incentives? What are the incentives to undertake renewable type projects on the continent?
Yes, I think the government is making some effort in that regard, especially coming from COP28. Mm-hmm. There was a lot more pronouncements around green incentives to be had, and even the reporting framework required there. What we're not seeing is a lot more integration between sustainability teams who have these mandates within the companies to do the reporting and the tax teams who have the numbers. And what we're hoping is that we have that integration as well that can guide also what needs to be reported or what incentives need to be asked for. The government definitely is coming through with incentives. But then again, the question is, what impact will those incentives have in the larger scheme of things? And what do we need to do differently so that we impact the right sectors and at the right level? This is where private sector comes in. Private sector needs to arm the government with the right level of incentives that should be given. But I think what would drive this is reforms, definitely in some of the countries. And we're seeing that already with Nigeria, where we have a big tax policy reform. We even heard from Ghana as well, some of the incentive frameworks around some of these industries. But I think there needs to be some balance struck between the corporate tax and the indirect taxes, the level of transparency required, measuring the impacts going forward by the companies, identifying people within those companies that take responsibility for reporting that information and making sure that the story is single and very cohesive.
Great. Thank you so much, Esiri. And Mbai, what are you seeing with the businesses that you deal with?
I think Esiri alluded to it where she said that, the group tax functions usually not sitting with that data that is required in terms of reporting. So I think it's really putting then the pressure on group tax to actually be more involved within the business so that they fully understand all the transactions that the business is entering into, so that they're able to collate and collect that information from the different sources to be able to report it accordingly. But yeah, it's not easy to collate.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, look, thank you both so much for your insights on this. And obviously, this is a developing area, and we would love to come back to you at some point. So again, thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Global Tax Talk. And tune in again so that you stay global tax ready.